if I'm not on the airplane flying with you, I would normally get here and meet you when you get off the plane. But last night I realized, I looked at my itinerary and I realized in order for me to do that, I would have to get up at 2 a.m. and travel 2 hours to get to the airport and then take a couple of different flights, and it was all worked out and I was too kind of scattered to kind of focus on that. So last night I rearranged so that I could fly a little bit later and meet you here at this magnificent museum, which is a place that I never tire of coming to. Many, many trips over the years. And I always want to thank American Airlines for getting us here. They've been a great partner of mine for over 10 years, doing all kinds of great things all around the country and the world. Envoy, an American, fly my band around all over the place so that we can perform for the troops at home and abroad. I'll actually be going back to San Antonio with you on the airplane. And we're going to be playing at Fort Hood on Saturday night and then over at Fort Bliss on Sunday. Concerts there for the troops to make sure that they know that we appreciate them and we don't forget what they're doing. Lots of thank yous from me as well. My team, as Peter said, Hannah, Bobby, Tony, my tremendous team that make these events possible, because we put them to work and they have to work it all out. So thank you to my team, Tom Gibbs, Stephen Watson, everybody here at the museum. They've been our great partners, great friends. Nick Mueller, of course, who I've known for years, and that's how I got involved with the museum. My dear friends Rick and Sarah Lynch are here. And we're gonna travel back to San Antonio together, and I'm gonna get to spend some good quality time with them. They're dear friends. Rick and Sarah are both advisory board members and ambassadors for my foundation. They've been on several Soaring Valor trips, and it's always great to have you here. So God bless you, and thank you for coming. We have Grapevine Faith Christian High School and our World War II veterans traveling together on this Soaring Valor trip. Very special to be able to provide these trips, not only for the incredible Americans that saved our world all those years ago, but to actually pair them up with the students so that the students can learn from them. I actually have a book coming out in, let's see, 3 or 4 months. The book comes out on February 12th. The book is called Grateful American, A Journey from Self to Service. And I thought, and it's a bit about how I got into the service mission work with regards to our veterans, but I thought a little bit of that, because so much of my family history is involved in this mission that I'm on now. I thought I'd share a little bit from the book about my family, so bear with me. My grandparents, Grandpa Dan and Grandma Betty, had three children, my uncles Jack and Jerry, and my dad Robert, who served in the U.S. Navy in the early 1950s. During World War II, Uncle Jack, at 24 years old, had been a navigator on a B-17 bomber flying 30 missions over Europe with the 8th Air Force 379th Bomb Group out of Kimbolton, England. His squadron, the 526 Bombardment Squadron, attacked enemy targets over Nazi Germany and occupied Europe, that included bombing runs during the Battle of Northern France and the Battle of the Bulge. I thought about what I was doing at 24. Uncle Jack was fighting a war at that age, and I was doing theater, acting in plays when I was 24, in a theater my pals and I had built in the basement of a closed-down Catholic school. Very different early years, my Uncle Jack and I. Uncle Jack told me that on many of his missions, as far as he could see, in front of him, behind him, and to the side, were airplanes. Hundreds of airplanes, sometimes more, all heading in the same direction. Many would not make it back. One time, just by chance, another navigator, Don Casey, switched missions with my uncle. And on that mission, Don's B-17 was shot down and the crew had to bail out. Don was captured by the Germans and spent 18 months in a prison camp before eventually being liberated by Patton's Third Army. He and Uncle Jack remained friends until their deaths, and Don always reminded Uncle Jack how lucky he was to swap flights that day, that Uncle Jack didn't have to end up in a German prison camp. Of the 330 missions flown by his bomb group in B-17 Flying Fortresses, 141 were shot out of the sky. On one of Jack's runs, his B-17 was so shot up, it only had one engine left, and they barely made it back over the English Channel, crash landing just as they reached the shore. Luckily, all survived. It was truly a dangerous duty, absolute hell above the earth. I asked Uncle Jack if he felt scared going up in those bombers and having those big guns fired at him from the ground below, watching his buddies and other airplanes being shot down. Mission after mission, he went up and performed the same dangerous job. He said that when they approached the bomb site and the anti-aircraft fire and flak were the most intense, as he looked through the scopes, he was so focused on navigating through the bombardier that he didn't have much time to be scared. Nobody wanted to be in that horror, but he and his fellow troops knew what they needed to do to survive. They had only two outcomes possible during those years. It was either live under tyranny or live in freedom. It was either kill or be killed. And they did what they had to do. While Uncle Jack was forthcoming in discussing his war experience, I always felt that there was a lot more he experienced that he didn't want to talk about. That he was simply unable to tell me about the many horrible things he witnessed during his time in World War II. I have the great pleasure of being the co-host of the National Memorial Day concert each year in Washington, D.C. And incredibly, this past Memorial Day, while in Washington, D.C., attending the National Memorial Day Parade, I met Teddy Kirkpatrick, who served in the 379th Bomb Group, the same group as my uncle, and Teddy is here tonight. Teddy, where are you? There he is. Right?
Teddy, right there.
He served with my uncle. You bet.
Remember, we got to find out about your uncle.
We'll find out about him, you bet. It's great to have you here, as it is every one of our exceptional World War II heroes. My Uncle Jerry, at just 18 years old, served on a U.S. Navy ship, a landing ship tank, USS LST-811 in the Pacific, arriving just after the Battle of Okinawa, when that ended in mid-June 1945. After Imperial Japan surrendered, Uncle Jerry traveled the islands to pick up Okinawan families to return them to their homes, mostly women and children. They'd been used by the Japanese as slave labor. He fed Hershey bars to the kids on the ship and bought them everything he could think of. The children sang for him in return, and years later he still said they were the most beautiful voices he'd ever heard. He spent that summer and fall traveling between the islands of Okinawa, Iwo Jima, Guam, Saipan, Leyte, and Tinian, and took part as a member of the occupation force of mainland Japan. In early August, after the war ended, Uncle Jerry said how even though the Japanese had surrendered, the whole Pacific region remained on edge for a time, as you never quite knew if the Japanese planes that were flying overhead actually knew the world war was over. Gunners on our ships were on high alert each time they heard the sound of aircraft approaching. Uncle Jerry was remarkable. He signed up for the military right after high school graduation in 1944, but was told he was 4F because his ears were badly scarred from the scarlet fever and chickenpox he had simultaneously as a kid. But Uncle Jerry convinced the recruiters he was fit for service. When he reached boot camp in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, doctors examined him once again and told him to get back on the train and go home. Uncle Jerry refused. He insisted on doing his duty. They let him stay. After the war, he would be discharged on June 1946, only to be drafted back into the Navy again during the Korean War. In January of 1951, he began serving aboard the USS McCoy Reynolds until being discharged on February 4th, 1952. So that's a little family history from Grateful American, due out in stores on February 12th. You gonna buy it?
Yes, sir.
You can pre-order it now at half price. It's my first book. Rick Lynch knows about writing books. My involvement with this magnificent museum sparked a relationship that began in 2009 when I was asked by Tom Hanks to read the voice of Ernie Pyle in the film Beyond All Boundaries that we're going to see tomorrow morning. After my first visit here, I called my Uncle Jack and asked him if he'd ever been here, and he said, no, but I've been donating money ever since they opened. I offered to fly him down here to New Orleans to visit the museum for the first time. While he was here, museum staff recorded him on video discussing the history of his war years. Uncle Jack passed away in October of 2014, and afterward I contacted the museum and I asked them if they would send me the DVD of my Uncle Jack's telling his story, his oral history. And when I sat down and watched it, I was all choked up. I was very grateful that I had that. And I thought every family of a World War II veteran should have a DVD like this. And every veteran should have the opportunity to see this museum and be recorded. I knew it was important to get this going quickly, so in 2015, the Gary Sinise Foundation created our Soaring Valor program and arranged funding for one of the museum's historians to travel around the country to record the stories of our veterans who could not visit the museum here in New Orleans. And I also reached out to my pals at American Airlines with a proposal seeking their support to travel World War II veterans here to see this incredible museum for themselves. So once again, thank you to American Airlines for all you do for our veterans. We absolutely need to record and learn the lessons these veterans have to share. Never in the history of our country and the world has there been a more devastating and destructive war than World War II. With an estimated 80 to 100 million people killed, it remains the most horrific conflict in the history of our planet. The line between freedom and tyranny was never so thin or so clear. And all of us today are the beneficiaries of those who sacrificed in defense of freedom during those years, the heroes that we are privileged to spend time with now on Soaring Valor. Had Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, and Fascist Italy succeeded in their attempts at global conquest, each person alive today, each and every one of us, would be living very, very differently. By the time I was old enough to understand and appreciate what my grandfather and Uncle Jerry had experienced during their war years, their service was long behind them. They also never spoke much about their military days. I regret that I was never able to ask my Uncle Jerry and my grandfather about their service years before they passed away, and thankful for the time I did have to talk to my Uncle Jack about his service during World War II before his passing in 2014. But this only came after I was an adult. Students of Grapevine Faith Christian High School, please stand up, let me see you. As young people, you now have a very, very significant opportunity that I did not take advantage of with the veterans in my own family when I was your age. Do not take one moment of this incredible opportunity for granted. You are seated with members of a great, great generation of Americans who saw and did things to preserve freedom that the freedom of the world that are almost unimaginable today. Students, this trip is a gift from the American people who generously support the Gary Sinise Foundation and our many programs to serve and honor the needs of our veterans and first responders. Our supporters know that this program is so positive, and they know the importance of passing on the lessons of sacrifice and service given to all of us by these amazing veterans. This is a moment in time you will carry with you always. Walking the halls of this museum, seeing the stories of battle and sacrifice through the eyes of the individuals who lived it that we are so blessed to have with us today. Remember what you learn here. Remember what you see here. Remember always what you hear from these great Americans, and carry these lessons in your heart in gratitude and appreciation for them and what they did. And make the most of your lives and the freedom that we are so blessed to share in this great country. Got it? Be seated.
Stand back up and give Gary a hand. Great time. Come on. Give him a hand. That's what we're doing this.
To our World War II veterans, while we could never do enough to repay you for your debt, the debt you paid in the 1940s, I want you to know that until my last breath, I will try to honor what you have given to me. The freedom that is so precious, that everyone who serves our country fights for and sacrifices for. And that we as a nation will never forget you and the price you paid for that freedom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All our World War II veterans, for what you did to win that war. Your sacrifice will live in my heart forever, and I know that these grateful students will carry all of you in their hearts from this day forward. I'm honored to be here with you. Enjoy your Soaring Valor experience. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you very much.